Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuhu. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's it going, fam? Hello, welcome. I'm so excited. We have a special guest tonight. Lots to talk about, as usual. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Let me know. Insha'Allāh, you can hear me. Akil, wa alaikum salam. Welcome. Like the stream, please. Like the stream. Share it. If you know of anybody who will find this live stream beneficial, please share it. This is a live stream for both born Muslims and new Muslims. As you guys know, you guys are always here, always supportive. I love you guys so much. Wa alaikum salam, Shanwaz. You haven't been here before. Welcome, welcome. Assalamu alaikum. I hope this message finds you in good health. Alhamdulillah, it does. Nice to see you again. I would be grateful if you could remember me in your prayers. Okay. Yes, I saw you on Facebook today. How's it going? How's your Ramadan going? Brother Bilal Siddiqui. Okay, I will add you to the list, inshallah. May Allah continue to bless you with success, guidance, and steadfastness on the path of Islam. Ameen, ameen, ameen. He may also grant you mercy, forgiveness, and protection. Yeah, inshallah, inshallah. Islam and go, brother. What's up? How's it going? How's it going? I was thinking about you when it's freezing in Napoli today. It's so cold, guys. I'm wearing a sweater because it's so cold. It's 13 degrees Celsius, 55 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm dying. I'm absolutely dying. So. Hi, Mama. How are you? Nice to see you. How's it going? How are you feeling today? I've literally talked to you at nothing today. I'm like, hey, how's it going? I have things to do. How are you, Mama? It's nice to see you as always. Wa alaikum salam. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Skills versus degree. How's it going? Go Rez. How's your mama? Please let us know. I'm not on TikTok today, Mehdi. So welcome. Wa alaikum salam. So you're free from moderating duties, brother. 22 degrees. Bro. You're killing me. 35 degrees, Mama. When I woke up this morning, it was like minus temperatures in Michigan. Absolutely brutal. That's so crazy. Nav, welcome, brother. Wa alaikum salam. How is my Ramadan and Quran recitals going? The Quran recitals are not going. I have done no Arabic this Ramadan, alhamdulillah. But I am doing, of course, my juz a day, Insha'Allāh. Strive to do a juz a day. We are in juz 17. Also, today in the United States and in other places like Ireland and where else? The UK, it is St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day. Today is the day where people binge drink. This is a brutal day to be on the roads. If you're going to Taraweeh, please, Insha'Allāh, be careful on the roads. Okay? People are binge drinking. People are drinking way too much alcohol. Over the holiday weekend in 2019, I know this is old statistics, but these still are relevant. 63% of car-related fatalities involved drunk drivers. Guys, if you are driving your family to, even just by yourself, to and from Taraweeh, please be careful. Turn your lights on. Be very vigilant. Drink lots of coffee, right? 33% of pedestrians killed in car crashes over this holiday were intoxicated. This is a brutal holiday. Hundreds and hundreds of people in the United States are killed just on this night alone, guys. It is estimated that a drunk driving death occurs every 30 minutes during St. Patrick's Day. As a former bartender, trust me, we overserve because we're making money on this day. Please, Insha'Allāh, please be careful, guys. Maybe pray Taraweeh at home. I know you get more reward if you pray in the masjid. I get it. But please, guys, I want you guys to be safe. I want you to show up tomorrow feeling good. And also, as I mentioned yesterday, before you go to Taraweeh, please brush your teeth, guys. Please brush your teeth. We're a lot of comments on Twitter about people not brushing their teeth after Iftar. Okay? Remember your brothers and sisters in the masjid, right? 4C, not bad. That's disgusting. It's too cold for me. Alcohol and guns. Yes, alcohol and guns, but mostly alcohol. Yeah. Wa alaikum salam. Android user from India. Welcome back. How's it going, guys? Okay, so we have another amazing guest tonight. I'm so excited, guys. Let me see what I can do here. I don't want to scare you too badly because it's very important. The question today, it's all about St. Patrick's Day, even though we don't celebrate this day. What was St. Patrick's Day originally meant to celebrate? Let me know in the comments. What was St. Patrick's Day originally meant to celebrate? Let me know in the comments. And if you have any comments for our guest while we're chatting away, Insha'Allāh, you will let us know in the comments. All right, let me go back to the right channel, Insha'Allāh. And I will bring on, this man is named David Williamson. He is a convert to Islam. He is a dear brother. And yeah, I follow him on all the socials. So inshallah, you guys will follow him too. He's on Instagram and Twitter and maybe something else. I'll have to ask him when he comes on. Inshallah, let's see if I can bring him on. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. David, how are you?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Alie, thank you so much for having me on.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Yeah, for sure. I am super excited. So St. Patrick's Day. I know it sounds so dreadful to like talk about all these bad statistics. But
yeah, I was like, dang.
I know.
I didn't even think about that stuff. I mean,
wow, you're
us Irish, man. Like it's kind of in our blood.
I know. I'm also Irish on my father's side, so yeah.
I got like an eighth on both sides. So.
Oh really? Okay. Yeah. Have you ever been to Ireland?
I actually haven't. No. I'd really like to go. I've heard it's really pretty. Yeah,
it's beautiful. My dad's father is from Belfast. Alhamdulillah, it's very beautiful up there. Yeah, for sure. But the drinking culture is something I do not miss at all, as you can imagine. It's absolutely disgusting. And so please let our audience know, can you share your journey of how you came to Islam? Like we were talking backstage, guys, and David is very young. You converted at what age?
I converted to Islam when I was 17. I'm 21 right now. So about 4 years and some change. I'd say I first started becoming interested in Islam around when I was about 14-ish. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X in one of my classes, and I always thought Islam was like kind of a religion for foreigners, a religion specifically for like Asians or like Arabs, just kind of people over there, if you will. And when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, he goes to Mecca and he describes like all the different people. And he's like, oh, there's white people there. Their eyes were the bluest of blue and their hair was the blondest of blonde. And they were Muslim. We ate from the same plate. And I remember reading that. I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even think that like Islam, I could even be Islam. Like I could be Muslim. Like it just wasn't really an option I considered at all. And so I, from there, I was like, okay, like this sounds kind of interesting. Like I really was inspired by Malcolm's story about like how Islam gave him this sense of like moral discipline, this sense of purpose in life. And I just liked a lot of the Islamic morality. I thought it was very positive. And so from there, that's kind of when I started researching more about Islam. So I read the Quran, I started reading about Islam. I kind of came in contact to a lot of like the people debating online and whatnot, and just sort of the different arguments and stuff like this. And then eventually I'd say it was reading the life of the Prophet. Like I read the Seerah, and that's kind of what put me over the edge, because I saw that the Prophet, peace be upon him, like I saw that he was sincere. Like I saw through his actions. I saw like how dedicated he was to the mission. I saw that, he wasn't just like making stuff up or like trying to get personal gain. Like he clearly believed in this message. Like I knew that from the beginning. So then it was just like, okay. And then also just historically, it's really hard to explain the rise of Islam. Like it's like one of the most difficult things to explain. Like even historians struggle with it. So it's just like seeing with it, I was like, okay, I think this guy was a prophet. And then from there, like everything else kind of just falls into place. So that's kind of the rough synopsis.
Yeah, that's amazing. Alhamdulillah, 14. I mean, I can't even, so what was your family like when you were like researching? Because, that's a common story, like Sneeko and other people have read the Malcolm X story. I've read it myself. And it's also sort of assigned reading in high school in some places in the United States. So they must have been like, oh, he's just reading, this is part of the curriculum. And you're like, oh, and by the way, I'm going to convert. Like, what were your parents' reactions?
Yeah, so they're obviously very surprised at first. Like, my family's actually like pretty open-minded about things. Like my mom told me when I was young, like she's like, yeah, I kind of want you to choose your own religion type of thing. So that's kind of, my family's not really that religious, and so they didn't really care that much. But like they were just like, they weren't really sure. Like they didn't really know very much about Islam or Muslims, and they just weren't really sure. They were just a little worried. Like I was really young. It's like
Yeah,
taking a
that's what I'm
big step.
thinking.
And so they're like kind of that kind of informed it a lot. I'd say that was
Yeah,
the biggest factor, if I'm being honest.
yeah, for
I
sure.
bet if I had started my research and when I was like maybe 5 years older, it would have just like there would have been a lot less resist. Like there wasn't really that much to begin with anyway, but just like
Right.
minor stuff, which is natural. But like
Of
alhamdulillah now,
course.
like my parents are totally supportive of my decision. Like they support me and they want me to
Mm.
be the best Muslim I can be. And like
Oh, alhamdulillah.
yeah, I'll talk about certain things that like I'll talk about like stuff that's going on in my life, Islamically related, and they'll be very sympathetic and try and help me out with sort of what I deal with and whatnot. And so,
Mm.
yeah, like I can't really complain, to be honest.
Alhamdulillah. That's so beautiful. That's really, and that's rare, actually.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. You're very fortunate in that way. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
alhamdulillah.
That's, yeah, absolutely. So, so you're so young and then you convert, and all your peers are, how was that with your peers, talking to them about, like, hey, by the way, have you guys heard of Islam? Like, how did that happen? And, like, what were some of the conversations you had with your friends at that age?
Yeah, so like I was in high school, so like, and
Okay.
I also went to like a really small school. So my high school only had like 70 or 80 people in our graduating class. So
Oh,
very
wow.
tiny. And so
Yeah.
it's a weird dynamic because everybody knows everybody and everyone's like
Yeah.
friends with everybody, but
Hmm.
just to levels, like varying levels. And so
Yeah.
my classmates, at first they kind of just made fun of me because it was so bizarre. And that's kind of what happens in high school.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like there were no hard feelings about it. It was just like, but like
Yeah.
over time, they kind of they kind of just got used to it, I guess, and like they
Mm.
respected it because like I set my boundaries to make sure that like people knew I was Muslim and whatnot. And people like they don't really like they just didn't care. They're like, oh, okay, interesting. Like I mean, it's just like over time, like if you want to be friends with people, like you kind of learn to accept whatever quirks or whatever things they might have. And so that's kind of what happened. And like I still have good relationships with my friends
Awesome.
when I converted, and I didn't lose any friends. No one was like weird to me about it. There was like I remember there was like one kid in my high school at first, like he was like he's kind of a hardcore Christian. At first he was like a
Mm.
little bit like cold about it, but like over time we kind of had developed like a mutual respect of each other. So and
Mm.
I don't know him super well, but like it was just like that's the only real like major like hardcore interact beyond just like people teasing each other, which happens in high school. Everything
Of
like it's
course.
nothing to
Yeah,
do
of
with them.
course.
Like I think that people could be like it's like oh like your friends are making like Islamophobic. I was like no, I was just in high school
Yeah.
and like people make fun of each other for literally everything. So like
Yeah, exactly.
to
Yeah,
like
exactly.
have like super thin skin about that,
Yeah, for
it would
sure.
just be ridiculous.
Well, it's so interesting because you say that on Twitter a lot. You're like, it's people will say things and you're like, well, actually, you really call people out on that. And I really appreciate that because people always want to say, like, oh, it's Islamophobia. You're like, yeah, but is it really? Like, is it really Islamophobia? Or are you just being a jerk? Like, are you just being a bad person? Like, being
Yeah,
I've seen some, yeah. That's
I mean, I
interesting.
think that's kind of this like modern sort of ideology that's developed, where like if you're perceived as like a oppressed group, like none of your actions can inform, like you can't really do anything wrong. And so
Right.
any group, any criticism of you or whatever group you come from must be motivated by like a collective hatred of that group based on
Right.
arbitrary reason. Which like, are there people that feel that way? Absolutely. Yeah, like of course there
Course.
are. But at the same time,
Yeah.
I would say that like these mass phenomenons, it probably depends on the country you live in, but at least in
Right.
America, like there isn't this mass phenomenon of like everyday Americans both thinking about and just hating Muslims just
Yeah.
completely arbitrarily. That
Yeah.
Sheikh Mehdi Locke is in the UK. He said it really well. He's like, honestly, like we act like people care about us all the time. Like people hate us so
Mm-hmm.
much. The reality is most people just don't care. Like
Yeah.
I don't like when you're walking around, like when I walk around outside my neighborhood, the guy I just passed on the street isn't thinking about, hey, what are the Muslims doing today? No, he's
Right.
probably thinking about his own life. He's probably like, oh, how do I get food on the
Definitely.
table? Like, oh, what do I need to get in my
Yeah.
home? Like, oh, is my wife doing okay? Like, just very
Yeah.
mundane things. People don't really think
Totally.
about. It's just that, like, if you're in that Muslim space, you think about those things. So you just project
Of
it on other
course.
people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think people think that people are worried about them, but they're actually worried about themselves. Like that's
Yeah,
why thankfully I learned that at a pretty young age where I'm like people don't really care about me. I care about me, but people don't really actually care about me. Like
yeah,
I'm worried about what they think I'm. No, they don't really. They're worried about what people are looking at them, not me. So I think that's like really, yeah. We have to put our little critical thinking hats on it. Like people don't care about you. Like really, I
yeah,
mean, ultimately they're cared about their own little circle of world, like their own world. But like,
yeah,
yeah. But I think if you're Also, people look at you and they don't assume that you're Muslim. Like, obviously, I don't wear
Yeah,
hijab,
yeah.
so people don't know you're Muslim. So I think it's a little bit different if you're like a second generation immigrant from Egypt and you're living in with a hijabi mom and you're a hijabi and like all these. So I think it is a little bit different for us because we are European descendant Muslims.
Yeah, that's probably true.
AKA white Muslims.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit different. But yeah, I think that people can get a little bit, because I know that there are like even Muslims in Canada that are like, oh my gosh, they're very like hyper vigilant about it, and I get it because you're second generation immigrants. So
Yeah.
we have a different story, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it depends on the group of people you're speaking about.
Yeah, and especially in high school, people tease people all the time in high school. It's like they're not being mean; they're being teenagers.
Yeah, that's just kind of how it is. Like, and like honestly, like,
You're
like
fine.
I don't think you could survive high school if you were just like brutally offended about like every little minor
Everything.
remark. Like that would just probably might make things worse. Because that's the other thing. Kids can be kind of a-holes. Like, and if you show weakness on subjects like this, they'll just make fun of you more.
Gosh.
Like
Forever.
the easiest way to deflect like any type of like teasing if you're in high school, if any of the listeners are in high school, is to just like kind of own it and be self-deprecating about it, because then it kind of disarms people.
Absolutely, 100%. That's great.
And it's not like that's not being like, because I was like, oh, that's not like you know, being like a to use the modern lingo. That's not like being a simp or being weird or anything.
Right.
No, that's just like, that's just, I don't know. It's just like how to navigate skills and.
Totally, absolutely. And I think it helps if you have a family, if you come from a family where they tease you constantly about everything, and then you sort of grow that thicker skin. Like on our family, like if you spelled something wrong and like, I think they'll like make fun of you, or like you have you have a breakout, they'll like make fun of you, like you know what I mean? Like you do silly things and they call you out on it, and then you're like kind of like, I'm kind of dorky and like I don't care, and like, and then when people in high school make fun of you, you're like, yeah, that's me. That's
I have an older brother. So.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, me too. Yeah, so you kind of like take it in the chin, you know. You're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But there's some families that don't do that, right? They're like very protective of everybody's feelings, but like I think that's unfortunately it's not the real world, because when you get out into the real world and you get called names and all that stuff, then it's like, oh my gosh, my self-esteem, you know. So
yeah.
So I was going to ask you about specific people who played a significant role in your journey, but obviously it's Malcolm X. But were there any specific moments that sort of were not, I want to say like aha moments, but more like coming to that whole realization, like, okay, now I'm ready to convert now. Like, this is it. There's, you know, sometimes people have like life or near-death experiences. Like, was there anything that precipitated that change or that shahada taking?
I didn't really have I didn't have like a dream one day and I saw like the apple come from the tree and, and I interpreted like did some like Freudian psychology or what. No, that didn't really happen. Like I kind of just you know, I'd have like moments where like I'd have moments of reflection where I'd be reading something and I might think about it. I'm like, it's very profound, or like certain verses, like, you know, when you're reading the Quran, you're thinking about stuff like this happens like now. And you'll just have moments where it's like you'll kind of break down a little bit because it's you'll sort of feel like you're being spoken to by God, which can be is a powerful feeling. But I'd say like reading the Sirah, I'd say like that's kind of I got the definitive conclusion, because that's like, okay, like here's the life of the guy that you're gonna follow and judge for yourself. And so you read it, and it's like boom, okay, like this is pretty clear cut. There's things, I mean, there might be things in there like if you come from a Western audience that you might not understand, like usually minor things, but if you look at the bigger picture, it's like, okay, this guy, like it's pretty obvious that like he is who he says he was. And yeah, I mean, I'd say that would like be the aha moment, because like for me it was just like, since I was young, it's like, okay, do I have enough wisdom, or not wisdom, but like, do I have enough knowledge to make this decision? Because I feel like if you're really young, like the evidentiary bar tends to be a lot higher, just because you can make a lot of really emotional decisions, especially around religious subjects. That's why like a lot of young people will join like cults or mass movements or stuff like this. And so I felt like I reached that bar once I actually read about like cover to cover the life of the Prophet.
Did you read Martin Ling's autobiography?
I did not. I actually read the Sealed Nectar, and it's like it's a good book. It's very like it's very technical. Martin Ling's book reads much more like a novel, which I think could be I think is probably a better recommendation for people. The Sealed Nectar is very, very textbook-esque. Like there's a whole like one of the beginning chapters is basically just like a demographic analysis of like Arab tribes, which is like
wow.
super technical. They're like super technical. Like
Yes.
that's kind of what like, you get the facts of his life, which I think was the most important thing.
Right. That's interesting. I'll have to check that out. I've heard about a lot about it, but I've only read Martin Ling's Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. Yeah, for sure. So how did your understanding of Islam grow after converting?
Yeah.
It's been 4 years now. So this is what, your fourth Ramadan?
Yeah, fourth Ramadan.
Nice.
Definitely a lot. Like at first,
I'm sure.
I thought Islam was like very literal. So I was very like kind of Wahhabi leaning. I took things very literalistic. I tended to like, just kind of look down on people, I'd say, like because I just didn't really understand. I didn't know enough to understand like differences of opinion and certain stuff like this. So over time, I'd say I got much more like opened. I'd say the biggest thing with me was kind of coming to terms with the fallibility of Muslims themselves, because I kind of like when you're kind of in like a very legalistic understanding of the religion, and you do your best to follow that, you kind of see it all about just like rules and commandments, which is really the wrong way to look at things, because when people step up or like when people are outside of the box, it really complicates your view of like the fact that Muslims are human beings. And so like when I first like started hanging out with like Muslim friends outside of school, it was like kind of a mind shock, because like in many ways they were much more normal than I was expecting, and I didn't really know how to feel about that. Like it was bizarre. And so I kind of just I gradually kind of come to terms with that. And even being at school, like sort of, I'd say the biggest thing is when I came to college and saw people that like were not, because like only Muslim friends I knew in DC were like at the masjid. And so I came to school and I saw people of like varying levels of faith. And that was just like, at first it was like, I didn't really know how to feel about that, but it's just something I've kind of come to terms with. And I've just kind of learned to accept people for who they are and just be okay with the fact that like, I just sort of come to terms, I guess, with some of my own shortcomings as well. And that's just kind of been a point of maturity. Because like when I've heard like a lot of growing up is like sort of letting go of this like sense of hardcore idealism about yourself and others. And that's just kind of been a point I've had to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. So are you part of the Muslim college scene now?
Yeah. I'm part of my Muslim Students Association.
Oh, cool. And how is that going? Like, how's that? So you're in, what year are you in?
I'm a junior.
Cool.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd say it's a good community overall. It's a small community in terms of like, it reminds me of my high school, to be honest. Like you kind of know pretty much everybody, but just to varying levels. And so like you might hang out with like everybody and like especially the brothers. It's more gender separated, I would say. Like not like a ton so than like high school, but like more so. But one of the things, it's an interesting scene because you sort of see the interaction, like the intersection of cultures and like I guess just sort of like how people are raised as Muslims in America, because most of the people in our MSA are second generation immigrants, so their parents are from another country, and they come to America, and so then their kids are raised in America as Muslims, and so a lot of them will retain a lot of their connection will be linked to their culture back home. So they'll their Islam will be very, very much in the flavor of whatever culture that their parents raised them in. And that can be to varying levels. There are some people that really put a lot of effort into the religion itself. And so they might see some mistakes in the way that like people in their culture practice the deen or practice Islam. And they might try to correct those. And then you might also have scenarios where people just kind of like, because it's linked to their culture, like they're very much still kind of in the mindset of their parents. And that comes with all the positives and negatives of whatever culture they come from. And it's just kind of that's been a big thing for me to kind of come to terms with. And it kind of, because like my native culture obviously is not Muslim. And so there's no like, white American like connection to Islam organically. Like I pretty much had to just learn the religion as it was and sort of learn how to adapt my own culture. And like we'll probably get into this later, but like I think sort of this cultural jump for a lot of converts is probably why you see a lot of people, a lot of Muslims who convert to Islam, especially white people, will adopt like the dress of whatever their local community is, or like they'll try and act like they're Arab or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a means of fitting in, because if your social group is all like that, you either feel like an outsider to, you're basically choosing which group of people you want to feel like an outsider to.
Right.
You're either going to be an outsider to the wider culture that you're from, like the American culture, or you're going to feel like an outsider to the Muslim space that you're in. And so some people will just choose to be an outsider to their wider culture because they'd rather just fit in more with the Muslim space. Yeah. And I think while that might have short-term benefits, you kind of lose an aspect of who you are, which can be really debilitating in the long run. And so I do not recommend that people do that. I recommend you embrace who you are and sort of just understand that converting to Islam is going to come with certain jumps, and you kind of have to learn what those are and it sort of get used to it. And that can be hard. And it's something I'm still figuring out how to do. But I think that's really the best way to kind of go forward with it.
Yeah, no, alhamdulillah for that, because I was talking to the Muslim cowboy last week, the same thing. I was talking about Muslim Reddit, and somebody's like, I'm white, I just converted, I don't belong anywhere. I think I'm just like going to just start being more Arab. And people are like, what? No, how do you be more Arab? Like, you can't just adopt another culture. Like, I think a lot of converts, white women, when they convert, if they convert for their husband or, a love interest, a lot of times they adopt the dress and the clothing and the food of their husband's family, which makes sense. But for those of us who don't have that, it's like, where do I fit in exactly? Because I don't have a role model. Like I say on the live stream all the time, I'm like, where are the women role models? Like there's Tamara Gray, okay, and now who else? Like, who do I look to for as an example of a white Western convert? There's one, at least we have Muslim Cowboy, we have Sartorial Shooter, we have Hassan Spiker for white men. Who else do we have? Like for men, you have at least 3 people. I guess there's a lot in the UK, like Timothy Winter, and and Abdul Rahman. There's another Murphy. There's a few, so there are a few, but there's very few women. Like, and then it's like, well, wear an abaya. I'm like, I'm not wearing an abaya, bro. Like I can't. Like, sorry, that's not my culture. First of all, where do I buy an abaya in Italy? Like, that's almost impossible.
That's totally fair. Yeah, I guess that's right. You're in Europe. You're not in the US. But I guess there's the point I was going to make about this thing. It can just it can be kind of hard to like sort of see like what I guess like what am I supposed to do once I become Muslim, and
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That people say, well, take the good parts of your culture, like Robert of Canada from Islam for Europeans. Take the good parts of your culture and then leave the haram parts. Like, that's fine. But what about clothing? And you talk about this a lot on your on Twitter about clothing, because that is a big. Sartorial choices are very difficult to find. Modest clothing that are Western attire. Like, I can barely find anything, and if I do, it's like Klondike attire, right? Like, it's very like gold rushy, and it's like, I'm not walking to this grocery store carrying bags of groceries in like Klondike, like big dresses. I mean, that's just not, for men, it's a lot easier. For women, it's like, you wear jeans if you can, and they're all tight. It's like, there's no jeans. Well, so we have like very limited options. So
interesting. I didn't think about that.
It's much harder for a women, for like converts, unless you adopt a South Asian style clothing, which is like, that would be weird. I'd be LARPing.
Yeah.
Like, that would just doesn't make sense, right? Like, why would I wear that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I realized what I was going to say about I think it's interesting how, like, I feel like for a lot of people convert to Islam, like the role models you see a lot of them are just like purely scholarship figures, which I think has its positives and benefits, but like, the vast majority of people are not going to become scholars who convert to Islam, and nor should they. Right. I think there's more of a need for people who convert to Islam, or just Muslims in general, just being good at everyday things, just being good at their fields or whatever. Like,
Right,
I don't know, if you're
exactly.
interested in like entrepreneurship, if you're interested in
Right.
healthcare, whatever, just being really good at what you do. Because that's
absolutely.
going to have very positive reverberations.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think that's, and so like, I actually kind of like some more, you mentioned Satoru Shooter. I really like that guy. Cause like,
Me too. Yeah.
he's, you know, he's an Aussie guy. He's in Dubai, and he kind of just does his own thing. Like, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He's kind of learned to ignore a lot of the people that are like throwing shade or whatever. Like, he has his tailor shop. He cares a lot about that stuff.
Yep.
You know, he has his security business, so he just works on that. And he's Muslim, and he talks about Islam, and it's just like, yeah, like that's a good example. And the thing is, people who are not Muslim, they might not convert to Islam, but they'll at least respect that decision. Whereas, if somebody converts to Islam and they just completely give up all the stuff that they were good at before, and it's just like, oh, my whole identity is now just like, I'm a Muslim. Like, hey, I'm a Muslim here. Like,
what else do you do? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like people don't really care about that. If we're being honest, like, most people do not care about your religion. They will care much more if you're like a good person or like you can actually help them than if you're like, oh, what your religion is. Like,
yeah, I talk about that a lot here on the live stream. It's like, people don't care, like, who are you at the coffee shop or at the grocery store or walking down the street? Like, who are you that? And not like, hey, I'm Muslim. Like, nobody cares, bro. Like, really.
Yeah.
If they see you have a different character, and they might be like, oh, that's interesting. She's a little different. I wonder why that is. And it's like, okay, if it comes out in a conversation, but they were like little pins, you know. Like, hi, I'm Muslim, ask me anything. It's like, no, that's not how this works, right? So I like Sartorio Shooter also because he had a video a couple weeks ago, and it was like, let's make Islam cool again. And I know people are gonna like, oh yeah, it was cool. Like, but people are like, oh, you know, but like, as you know, Muslims of European descent, we don't have that sort of like immigrant mindset where it's like, oh, just, you know, I feel like that really, you know, and I think Sheikh Hassan Spiker talks about this, is like this idea that like, it's sort of like a mindset where people who have been colonized have for a long time, where they're just like, oh, I hope they like me. I hope they like me. I hope they like me. Where it's like, we're just like, you know what I mean? So he's like, just like, be confident, be a confident Muslim, be a cool Muslim, like be proud to be Muslim, right? Like, be a good tailor, be a good, you know, we're hopefully, inshallah, we'll talk about your business coming up here, but like, whatever you're going to do, do it really well, right? Because in that thing, it resonates with people more than your religion. And don't feel like this whole like, oh, I hope they like me. I hope they like me. I hate that mindset. Like, we got to build confident communities. Like, that's super important. And I think it's different if you're an immigrant versus if you're like living in Algeria and an Algerian Muslim. Like, they don't have that sort of mindset, even though they were colonized for many years by the French, obviously. But they don't have that mindset, right? Like, Sami Hamdi talks about him and his wife are Algerian, but they live in Britain. They're confident Muslims. They don't be like, oh, please accept me. There's a certain diaspora that is very much like, please like me. And I don't know why that is. But I think we need to really start building more confident Muslims, especially in places like the United States and Canada and like North America, basically. Yeah, and I like his message.
Yeah, no, I think that's very well put. I think it's interesting. I think you have a lot of insecurity among a lot of Muslim communities, and it manifests in two forms. So it manifests in what you just talked about, or like, it's like, I hope they like me type of thing. The thing is, I always like to say, or something I've learned is like, insecurity is very much a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, if you're very insecure about things, you're always caring about like what other people think about you, and like you show that, people are going to talk about that aspect of you. And so it's like, people actually, you through your own worries have made people now like constantly worried about you. And so like, I don't really like, and I think people have started to pick up on that. Like, this is why you see like people starting to criticize Muslims in the media who are like very hyper on the like Islamophobia stuff or whatever. They'll be like, it's just like, you kind of bring out that like sort of victim mentality culture.
Totally.
But the other element of the insecurity is like this sort of like fake chauvinistic, like, oh, it doesn't matter at all what other people think about me. And so that's when you get like certain preachers that'll just act like complete a-holes to people that disagree with them on the internet, and they'll act like that's representative of like the wider society. It's like, well, I don't really care. I'm tough. Like, I don't really care what other people think. I'm like, well, that can be like, here's the thing, like, if you care only what other people think, like, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. But if you don't care at all about what other people think, then at some point, like, shame and like these things do control some moral behavior. Like, you're not going to like
Totally.
speak like a total clown if you feel like there's going to be actual consequences for what you're saying.
Totally. Yeah.
And
That's
so
so funny. Reminds me of the UK, the Dawa boys in the UK.
yeah, you get
They're
a lot of
real-
that.
oh,
It's like,
it's brutal. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like it's interesting because there's some people who give dawah that are fairly like not like super argumentative and angry, but then they're
Like
just,
Paul Williams, yeah.
yeah, he's a great, yeah.
Yeah.
Friend of mine, I like that guy.
Yeah, he's cool.
He very calm guy, like pretty, he'll say his points, but like he's not like in your face, this like in your face like argument, and it's just like I don't really like that. Like it's just not,
No.
and like honestly, people are not like getting convinced to. Sorry, I'm just plugging in my computer.
No worries.
People are not going to get like, they're not going to be won over by like, they're not going to get won over by like this like really like sort of pleading like sort of preaching, but they're also not going to get won over by like this very chauvinistic in your face type of preaching. So you just have to like be honest with people and sort of speak to them calmly.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. Yeah, I totally, it's an interesting, it's this idea of like insecurity, confidence, and arrogance. There's like a little bit of like, it's an interesting sort of, what is it called? Venn diagram, I guess. That's
absolutely, yeah. And like, I think
absolutely.
everybody feels these emotions. Like, it's not like no one's like, it's just that you kind of have to, it's just one of the point of maturity. You asked about maturity. Like, it's one thing I've had to recognize within myself. Like, okay, like, where am I like screwing up on these points, and like how can I sort of be better on things?
It's interesting because so you talked about being a first generation Muslim, and then also being an American, and then having the college Muslim scene is a lot of cultural Muslims, but obviously practicing as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, who do you look up to then in terms of, because I always talk in this live stream about representation. Like, I think representation matters. I think I have family who is contemplating, thinking about like Islam, but it's like when all they see is Muhammad hijab and like the other guy, Ali Dawa, they're like, who are these people? Like, these people don't speak for me. Or Sheikh Uthman, who I really admire, but they're also atheist. Like, they grew up in atheist households. They're like, I don't read the Bible. I don't care if there's inconsistency in the Bible. So who do we look up to, or who do you look up to specifically, obviously, for your sort of your, to represent you in a weird way, like in media and sartorial shooter? Like, who is it?
It's a combination of people, to be honest. Like, I think role models, like, there's no singular role model who's going to be good on everything, because human beings are, other than Prophet ﷺ, like Prophet ﷺ is like the only person where it's like, okay, you can replicate like pretty much everything about him because he's a prophet. Like, he hasn't sin, he's not fallible. And so, in terms of like role models, I just take good elements from different people. So people who emphasize different things, I'll maybe take from them, and that's kind of my approach. I also believe in like individual personal role models. So, like, I have people within my own life who I look up to. I think that's actually a better approach. I think this is like kind of a wider point, but I feel like a lot of like things that used to be fulfilled by like social institutions in America specifically, because I'm an American, have kind of been replaced by technology. And a good example of that is role models. A lot of people, you used to have like a father figure or like a mentor in your life. That's somebody you would look up to who as like a sort of, not a beacon, but like maybe they're like an example of good moral integrity. They would teach you things. They might be able to help you out. And since a lot of people don't really have those figures in their lives, they sort of use the internet as one. And the internet is not a great place to find a role model, because you might have somebody who's a good person and they're on the internet, but at the same time, you're only seeing the highlights of their life. You're not going to see like their day-to-day life. You're only seeing them in front of a camera. And like certain people, especially people who are popular on the internet, they know how to perform. Like, that's the thing. Like, in order to be popular on social media, you kind of have to know how to perform in front of the camera. But some people who perform in front of the camera might be like much different people behind the scenes. And so knowing somebody personally in your life who you can speak to about your own stuff, who you can turn to for help, and I think that's a much more important thing. So those are the role models like I sort of look to in my own life. And, part of that is my father. Part of that is like my sheikh, a few of my other friends. I'll try to model good aspects in all of them. And not everybody's perfect. So if there's certain things I notice as like flaws within certain people, I'll I just won't elevate those, but I won't hate the person as a whole. It's just like, okay,
Right.
it's just like I said, coming to terms with the fact that people, specific, and that includes Muslims, are humans.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always going to be like flaws and slip ups, and you should just sort of learn to accept that that's how people are.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, man was created weak is one of the ayahs
Yeah.
I absolutely love. And it's so true because it's like, and it's so funny because that's like when you think all Muslims are like perfect on this and then you realize like, wait, what, Muslims are human too? Like that's kind of a weird moment, right?
Yeah.
When you have that revelation, you're like, oh, okay, so then I can also be human, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I said, coming to terms. Like it's just
Yeah.
like you sort of learn to accept facts about the world that might be hard to accept, but yeah, it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So switching gears. So you are the founder of Audio Ilm. Can you tell
Yeah.
our audience what this is, please? I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, so we produce audiobooks. We specialize in Islamic audiobooks. That's how I got my start. I founded the company. I technically was like kind of doing market research on it, like 2022-ish, but like I'd say I only really started doing work around 2023. So started just recording like some basic audiobooks for different publishers and whatnot, and it's just like contractual. So people would hire me and my company. We would produce the audiobook, but it's just like pay you once. There's no like publishing deals. And recently we've started moving into publishing. So
cool.
in 2024, we acquired the audio rights to the Abdullah Yusuf Alie translation of the Quran. And originally I was just going to make like a normal audiobook for it, but I have some colleagues in the space who kind of inspired me to create what is the first ever fully dramatized audiobook for the Quran in English. And so
cool.
we've got a cast of about 50 something people, many of whom are Hollywood actors and professional voice actors, to voice every single part in the Quran. My sound engineer's name's David Williamson, great guy. He's multi-award nominated, and he's gonna add like he's adding the sound effects and like sound design and like cinematic. There's nasheed music, no vocals, or no instruments.
Right.
And it's basically meant to, if anyone's listened to old like BBC audio dramas or like those radio plays, essentially we've made the Quran into that. Okay. So we removed a lot of the he said, she said. When you're listening to it, when you're, for example, like in Surah Hud, like when it's the story of Noah, you'll hear like start to finish, like Noah preaching to his people arguing with him. And the way we've done it is like Noah's like here in space, the people are here. You hear like him building. It's almost like when you listen to it, you feel like you're in the scene, like you're in the Quran almost.
That's so cool.
It's this very immersive audio experience. Yeah. And if anyone listens to audiobooks, you'll be familiar with like Audible Originals. Essentially, they kind of have like, they use very advanced sound design to create these very immersive audiobooks. That's essentially what we've done with the Quran. It's hopefully coming out soon. Insha'Alllah. We're still, the sound design is taking a little longer than we expected it to, as it always happens and stuff like this. And so but alhamdulillah, it's coming along really, really well.
Awesome. That's so exciting. So inshallah, when it does come out, I'll make a post on our community page here and I'll let people know, and then they can inshallah go and check it out. Because I'm chomping at the bit here. I'm super excited for it. Yeah, exactly. So obviously the Quran. So how do you decide which books to record exactly? Is it more like people come to you, or do you go out searching for things? Like how did you decide to do the Yusuf Alie's Quran?
So honest, to be frank, it's the most popular one I could get the rights to. It has to do with. So in terms of like other books, like when people pay me to do stuff, I just pretty much take on any project. So if someone reaches out to me with a book, hey, I need you to record my audio book, I'll meet with them. You can discuss it. And then if they want to go through with it, we'll just do it. And so at first, like, obviously, like I had no reputation. So I literally went on Amazon and I just like searched like Islam or whatever in the categories. And I just like found different Islamic books, record like a 2 or 3 minute sample, and just send a sales pitch to like all these different authors. So like just random authors, random books. And like out of that, like a few people respond and be like, yeah, this sounds cool, let's do it. And so it's just like, and then you start from there, and then you slowly build up. And then, you know, I use Twitter a lot. Actually, Twitter was actually very helpful because I connected with people, connected with other people, and then eventually got clients there. And then just kind of build up that sort of that network and that sort of clientele and that reputation within the space. And that's kind of how I've gotten to where I am today. But the Abdul Yusuf Ali, yeah, like I said, it's just honestly the most popular translation I could get the rights to. Yep. I was gonna adapt another translation just as a normal audiobook, but unfortunately, fortunately now, like the deal it kind of fell through. But there's stuff like this happens. But in terms of audiobooks to target, like for like rights specifically, honestly, it has to do with books that I think would sell well, because it's a huge financial risk to buy the audio rights and publish it yourself. There's a lot of effort that goes in. It takes time. It can be expensive to produce audio, and so that's kind of my approach to it. But like with this one, I was like, okay, I have the rights to the audio to this Quran. I'm not going to probably get another chance to do something like this again. And why not? Let's just go for it. And low-key, the project, the project, like that's the thing. Like I was completely in over my head to some extent. Like I've never directed or done any like kind of executive producing like that before. So I kind of just like figured it out. I was like, all right, how do I do this? And so it wasn't just me on my own. It was just like I had a lot of other people around me who were very helpful, who I could ask them for tips, like how do I do this, how do I do that, and they helped me out. They're like, yeah, sure, like this is how you do this. It's like you need people like that to help you. And so like there was this one woman, her name's Barbara Scalaro, very helpful woman. She's an actress, and she just like basically I threw out a bunch of job posts on LinkedIn when I was looking for auditions, and she's very well connected within Hollywood. And she just messaged me on LinkedIn. She's like, yeah, I probably won't be able to do it because I'm busy. But here are these people that I know who are really good. Hit them up. And like these guys were like pros. Like one of them was like an multi-award-winning filmmaker. The other guy, one of the actors, the guy who voices Jesus, his name's Sam Benjamin. He was in Peaky Blinders. Like it's just like very, very solid cat. He got me Phil Myler, who's like the #1 ranked voice actor in Brazil. Like just amazing. He voices Zulkarnain. Just like a fantastic cast. We actually, and we nearly got Cat Stevens to voice Joseph.
Wow.
Yeah. It was so close. Awesome. Like he wanted to do it, and like their manager wanted to do it, but there were like some logistical challenges that it ended up falling through. But yeah, that I have a ton of respect for him, and like
he was interested.
Yeah. It was.
That's so cool.
But yeah, alhamdulillah, like everybody did a fantastic job on my cast. Like it took a while I had to listen to hundreds of auditions for all the different parts. But like alhamdulillah, like I'm really grateful with how well the people on my cast did. And Insha'Alllah, when it's all done, you'll be able to hear all of it.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, that's so exciting. I love your courage. You're like, I was in over my head. I had no idea what I was doing. And you know what? I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it. Like, that's the thing. It's like your intention was good. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just like helped you with the outcome, right?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And like I said, it's not done yet, but like I'm confident like it's gonna turn out good because like my guy, like I've been listening to the samples and whatnot. He's doing a good job, and I was real worried about that because like it's complicated. Like I kind of like I said, I wanted to make it really really good, and so but I was listening to it and I was like, damn, he really killed it.
Nice.
And so like he's got the right voice effects and like just the we have like he's created like very immersive soundscapes. So for example, like we had to. For every single location in the Quran, whether it be Babylon with Ibrahim or like Babylonia with Ibrahim, or whether it be Egypt during the time of Yusuf, or like Pharaoh's palace, or like any of these locations, I had to like research like sort of what that place was like, and so then we had to create the soundscape so that way it feels like you're there, you know. So when you're
that's crazy.
And that means like reverb and echo. So like for example, like when Musa confronts Pharaoh in the palace, Moses confronts Pharaoh. There's a little bit of echo because it's like this big tall building, and so like you kind of feel like you're inside. And some of the scenes were probably pretty difficult to create. Like I'd say one of the more difficult ones was when Moses challenges the sorcerers. And they're kind of doing the miracles back and forth. Like that one was pretty difficult to do because there's a lot of moving parts. There's like a crowd, and so we just had to like. Took a lot of tries to sort of figure that out, but like alhamdulillah, like it's coming along. It's coming along really good. Like I'm really happy with what I'm listening to.
Alhamdulillah.
And yeah.
And you're a college student, so like I don't know when do you sleep, brother? Do you sleep at all?
I try to. It's bad. Like low key, like beginning of semester. Like I take a lot of time on breaks to work on stuff like this.
Yeah.
Like beginning of semester was pretty rough. Like I was low key in the trenches for a lot of the nights. Like after the Super Bowl, I remember like a bunch of it's like a bunch of my friends were like cheering for the Super Bowl and stuff like that, and I like went back home. And I stayed up till like 4 a.m. just working on stuff because I had to do like a bunch of editing. And yeah, like there's moments like that where it sucks, but like overall, like, alhamdulillah, like stuff just happens.
No, and that's the thing. It's like you're putting in the effort, right? And that's the whole thing, you're doing your best, and that's the thing. That's, the soundscapes would be very difficult. That's so cool though. I'm super stoked for this. So how do you find, or how do you see audio ilm benefiting the Ummah, the whole Ummah, Because I know it's in English, so I guess it's more for the English audience, but a lot of people, not necessarily, right? Like, so how do you feel like it'll benefit our Ummah?
This project? Yeah, I mean, so basically...
Well, any of your projects, obviously. Like, you don't just do this. There's a lot of stuff. Inshallah, I'll show you guys on the, we'll cut to your website.
Oh, bet. So essentially, all my projects, like, they're in English, but English is kind of the language of the internet. So more and more young people, especially around the world, are learning English. You can speak English. And so audio content is extremely popular, especially among younger people. Like it's the fastest growing area of publishing. And so I wanted to create sort of content or like sources of knowledge that are going to appeal to how people like sort of approach the people on the level they're on, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And so I just basically take advantage of existing trends and popularity when it comes to media, and I use that. I'm just kind of using them to sort of deliver like quality products within that space so that people can listen to and hopefully benefit from. And specifically the audio Quran, like my main thing is that like it's sort of a very exciting way to listen to the Quran. Like it's entertaining, it's not just like, maybe like a monotone, someone reading it to you, which, it can be beneficial and people like that and people want to listen to that. Like there's other options, but this one is meant to be kind of entertaining. You're in the story, you're very immersed. Like it's kind of fun. And it makes it easier to follow, especially with stories. It's easier to follow along because sometimes like with the dialogue, it can get a little tricky or like what's going around. Like some scenes are quite difficult to do because they'll just be like a big jump that you kind of have to figure out. And so just stuff like that. And so I also just wanted people to actually get the meaning of the Quran. Because a lot of people, especially people I know in my circles, like people might read the Quran in Arabic, but they've never read it in English. And so they just don't know the meanings of certain verses. And I think that's a huge problem. And so it's just like any way I can to make it easier for people to digest the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that's inshallah something we can do.
That's cool, because my next question was, how do you plan to expand the reach of audio ilm both within the Muslim community and beyond? And that's a really interesting point that you just made, is that people who aren't, only Arabic readers, they're like, oh, let's read it in English or listen to it in English. And then it's this immersive experience where it's like, it's sort of, that's the beauty of learning a second language, is that you become, your world opens up in many ways, right? When you become, so that's really, really cool. And so, I'm thinking about, that's really, that's very cool, brother. I love that. That's so cool.
Thank you.
So do you speak Arabic? Because I know that on your website, you talk about speaking Arabic. Is that true?
Okay, I do. I'm not like fluent. I'm learning it right now.
Right, of course.
Inshallah, I'm actually going to Jordan in
cool.
fall. It's like study abroad. But I can pronounce. I mean, the main thing is I can pronounce the words. So like that's honestly the big sell that I give to people, because a lot of these publishers, they want somebody who's going to pronounce Allah as Allah, not Allah or anything like that, or like like some like Shaykhul Islam in Bukhari or something like that. Like they want the pronunciation to be correct, as opposed to somebody who might not know how to do it. So that's the main sell that I kind of give. And I'd say like I know, and so like that's kind of what I know, like a few words, or I know decent. My vocabulary is like okay. I'm like still learning the grammar and all that stuff, but of course, I just the main thing is I just know how to pronounce all the words and all the letters pretty well, and so that's kind of what helps.
That's the thing, yeah. Because when we were getting ready for this interview, you said you're like Ramadan, like you pronounce it like an Arabic speaker. I was like, oh, he must know Arabic because that's amazing. Because I don't speak. I've had critiques. People are like, you say Jazakal hair wrong. I'm like, okay, guys, like I'm trying, like I'm doing the best I can, So that's really cool. So how did you learn the pronunciation of these? Is this over time? I guess I assume.
You just gotta practice a lot. I mean, I found a really good YouTube channel called Arabic 101.
Oh yeah.
He has, like,
okay. Cool. Yeah.
Really good channel. Like he has like techniques for like how to pronounce. For example, he was like, if you're saying like paw, it's actually helpful to lie down when you say it because it gets your tongue in the right position. Just like stuff like that. Like very helpful tips for like non-Arabs to learn how to say the letters. Because the letters are quite difficult. Like especially like some of them.
I know.
Like ain or lain.
Ain, yeah.
Yeah, it's like very, very hard. But you just gotta practice, know what the technique is, and then just practice it over and over and over again.
Over and over again,
I mean, that's kind of the way it is. And then I took an Arabic class in high school. Like it was like online. It was so bad though. Like we barely learned anything. Like there was like not really a curriculum. It was like really unorganized. So we learned it was just weird. So I got like nothing out of that. The college,
16 weeks, nothing. Yeah.
Just literally nothing. Like it was terrible. I learned like a few words and like kind of how to write, and that was pretty much it. But the college classes I've taken have actually been pretty good. I have a really good teacher, and so like that's honestly the biggest thing with anything you're learning is if you have a good teacher.
It's the key, right?
Yeah.
It really is the key. So where do you see Audio Ilm in the next 5 to 10 years? And do you have any other exciting projects in the works?
I have some stuff that I'm working on. I'm hoping to expand the multicast element of my productions.
Very cool.
And the publishing wing specifically, but
you should talk to Muslim Cowboy because his book is coming out at the end of the month. We had him on last week.
Oh, sweet.
And his new book is coming out. So Inshallah, he'll have an audiobook or want an audiobook, and you guys can collab on that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to him. Sounds good. I'd say 5-10 years. Yeah, just keep expanding the multicast element. We'll see what other productions we can do.
For sure. So you're passionate about audio books, obviously, but what are there other sort of passions that you're pursuing at the moment? So obviously you're in university, in undergrad. Where do you want to, like, how do those two things intersect at all?
Yeah. So I'm a psych major, and so my psych major is not it's more technical, as I was saying in the pre-thing. But one thing I really like about psychology is the element, how it intersects with story as a medium. So there's a lot of great stories have, I think novels that are well written will often do a really good job at portraying the personality or the character, like the state of mind of characters in certain situations that they might be in. I think that's what really marks like really good novels from like bad novels, is that like the characters are like realistic because they act like how somebody would act in that situation. And so I think I'm kind of a Jungian. I really like Carl Jung. So I think that like story, he says myth, but I say story because not all stories are false. Is a really good, it's like he basically says that like story is like a way to tap into the unconscious sort of ideas of the human psyche. And so like there's sort of these cross-cultural concepts that we've kind of learned, and those are often expressed through myth. So for example, like just like different archetypes you'll see of people, like the hero, for example. That's a very common motif, no matter if you're looking at Greek mythology or Hindu mythology, stuff like this. And so I really like what I do is storytelling, like in terms of like the audiobooks, especially the fiction ones I do. So I really like how that intersects. And one of the things I found interesting with the Quran is like I had to take some creative liberty with how I was doing it, because I was directing people. Like my voice actors aren't just going to do everything perfectly on the thing. I have to tell them like what's going on in this situation. What is this prophet feeling when he's delivering this line, And so you have to put people in those sort of states. And so you have to convey the story. And so like, that's kind of how I guess those things intersect. But you want to know about like other passions, completely unrelated and
Yeah, for
stuff?
sure, please. I think
I
you're really passionate about football, aren't you? You talk
Yeah,
about
I love
football
football. Yeah, I played football in high
and
school. I
cool.
play it like recreationally, but I also like train. Like I'm trying to probably after Ramadan, I'm probably gonna start. I'm getting back into sprint training because when I was
Oh
younger, I
wow.
used to run really fast, and then I kind of didn't really train as much, and so I lost a lot of my speed. I'm trying to get it
Right.
back.
Very
So
cool.
I weightlift and I train because I really like playing sports. I think sports are incredibly important
Yeah.
for especially for young people. You learn a lot of
Yeah.
skills, and it's also just
Totally.
fun.
It is fun. Yeah, I totally agree. So, are you a big fan of Joseph Campbell then? I was just thinking about him, some of his books, The Power of Myth, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. I think that might be, I don't know if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell at all.
Funnily enough, I'm familiar with like his ideas and whatnot, but I actually haven't read any of his stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm familiar with like the hero's journey. It's
Yeah.
actually interesting that I took my like in eighth grade we read Malcolm X. We learned about that concept, like the hero's journey, and one of
Yeah.
the essays we had to write was Malcolm X a hero, based on
Oh,
the
interesting.
yeah. And so I obviously argued that he was, but
Yeah.
and so it's I really I understand that concept. I haven't read like the full like stuff.
Right, for sure, for sure. Okay, cool. So yeah, something to check out. So I want to know, do you have any advice for new converts? Because you're 4 years in now. You said 4 years in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, 21. So 4 years in, what advice would you give to young converts, especially I mean, 17 is really young, David. Like
Yeah.
that's like when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
incredible. Alhamdulillah. So do you have any advice for people, like especially people who are, I mean, have you ever thought about going to different masjids and like talking to young people about, or I guess, I mean, they're already at masjids. I don't know. I just feel like, is there any advice that you can
Yeah.
give people? Maybe somebody who stumbles across this video, even like that is contemplating converting to Islam, because that's pretty young. Like you have a big, even at 21, you have 4 years under your belt. That's
Yeah.
incredible, in my opinion. Yeah.
So like I'm not like an expert on everything, and I have many things that I'm still trying to work on myself, and I am still
Of
young, as you
course.
mentioned. So,
Yeah.
but I'll just say like, I guess I'll kind of do like an advice to younger self type of thing. Find friends as quickly as you can who are Muslim and
Oh,
who
cool.
genuinely care about you. I'd say that's just a thing in general. Find like actual
Okay.
friends, because a lot of people have like drinking buddies and like the Muslim equivalent of it, like the halal equivalent of it. And what I mean by that is people that you hang out with a lot, but you don't actually like. If you move to a different city, you'd probably never see them again.
Oh,
And it's because
interesting.
you can't like confide things in them, and you don't really trust them. I'd say find people like that who are Muslim,
Yeah.
and do not. I would say do not go on social media, like especially Twitter. Like do not go on like Muslim Twitter.
What's wrong? What's wrong with Muslim Twitter?
Oh yeah, what's wrong with it? Yeah. Yeah, I'm on there. That's why. No, but I would say like stay away from that stuff because like you're gonna get
Yeah.
dragged into like random political religious
Oh
debates
my
that
gosh.
you
Yeah.
have no control over and like you
Yeah.
probably don't know enough about to comment effectively on. So I'd say stay away from that stuff.
Yeah.
And don't try and learn everything. I like also like just take it slow and like
Yeah.
I'd say don't be so hard on yourself. Like you're gonna make a lot of mistakes and you're gonna stumble and it's a very much a long journey and like if you're too hard on yourself then you'll just kind of have like crippling self-confidence and you won't really be able to understand the big picture. Just like as long as you're moving loosely in the right direction, inshallah things will be okay. And then I would say be ready to face things that you're not going to understand. There's going to be some weird cultural shocks, especially around certain topics. I'd say the biggest one, and we didn't really talk about that much, nor should we. I don't think, given for somebody my age, is like the marriage stuff. Like, there's a lot of cultural shocks that I've sort of heard just speaking to my friends about this topic that I've kind of
Yep.
that I would just never have expected. That I've kind of had to sort of figure out.
Okay.
So like I'd say like stay away from certain things like that, and yeah, just like kind of become confident with who you are. I'd say the last piece of advice is be yourself. Understand who you are, understand if you probably grew up as a certain person. As long as you're not doing things that are just blatantly haram, be yourself. If you're a guy you care about sports, you have certain hobbies, don't give up those hobbies when you become Muslim. Keep them. Just be who you actually are. I think one of the mistakes I made is that there were some things I really liked to do that were not really, they were kind of mundane. They were just like random hobbies. And I kind of just replaced that with learning about Islam. And it's like, I think that over time, in the media term, I learned more, but it's like, I kind of lost a sense of who I was. And I'd say don't make your whole personality be that you're a Muslim, because you have to be a more complete person than that in order to be a truly mature person. So I'd say just reiterate, find good people around you, be yourself, understand that there's going to be cultural shocks if you're in a place like America where there's a sort of cultural understanding with Muslim community, and don't be so hard on yourself. Those would be the 4 pieces of advice I would give to 17-year-old David.
Alhamdulillah, I love that. That's really cool. Yeah, it's interesting about the hobbies and stuff like that. You give it up, which is great because you're learning things, which is part of the religion for sure. But at some point, you're like, wait, I used to paint, I used to draw. Where did that go?
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, I've gained this knowledge, but I've also lost this part, right? So let's bring that back in. And I think that there is a sort of an overlap for new Muslims where it goes that way. I think that's a natural progression for new Muslims.
The convert zeal. It's also
yes.
I think that if you just be who you actually are and just make Islam enrich your personality,
right?
Then it'll make it easier for everyone in your space to accept the fact that you become Muslim. I think one of the things that made it hard for my family is when I went really hardcore at the beginning. It was just parents, the number one thing, they don't hate your faith. They just don't want to lose their son or daughter. That's the biggest thing. They want to love their kid. And they feel like if you become Muslim and you start acting really bizarre in a bad way, and you start giving up things you used to like to do, they're going to feel like they've sort of lost their son or daughter. And that's why one of the things about the dress stuff, I think is more important than people realize, is that it's sort of actually similar to some of those white people. I went to Bali a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah.
And if you ever go to any of the Hindu temples there, if you tour them, you'll see those white tourists that are doing the water rituals and whatnot. And my family doesn't hate Hindus or whatever, but they think those people are weird and cringe. And it's
totally
who
cringe.
are these weirdos? These new age hippie types.
Yeah.
And my issue is when people start LARPing as Eastern cultures, whether it be Arab or Desi or whatever, or South Asian, then you sort of get lumped into that box. And that's not a good box you want to be in, because your family members are going to talk about you way more, and they're going to think you're really weird if you start doing stuff like that. It's just the way it is. They're not. It's not because they hate that culture. It's just it's bizarre. It's hard for them to understand. It'd be like if I walked into. It'd be like if my friend, one of my really good friends, gave a good example of this. It'd be like if you grew up in a really traditional Desi family, and your son and you one day showed up, or Desi or Arab family, let's say an Eastern culture, and you one day showed up with a bunch of tattoos and ripped jeans and earrings or whatever and a chain. Right. They would be like, "What the hell happened to my daughter, son or daughter? What is going on here?" It would just be a really bizarre thing. And so that's kind of, I guess, how families might feel. And so I'd say just understand that you can be who you actually are and just get rid of the bad. There's not if you're somebody who's sincere and you're looking for Islam and you find it, unless you were I don't know, some drug dealer, or an actual criminal or something, there's probably not as much wrong with you as you thought there was. And you should just you should just try and just tune your life. Don't treat yourself
revamp.
And I think honestly we kind of have a survival. There's this weird selection bias with the convert stories you hear. The really entertaining ones that are popular are the really wild stuff where like somebody will be like in a gang, it'll be like murdering people, and then like I read the Quran and like or like like I used to do this. Oh, I used to be a degenerate. Whereas like if you're just like I didn't have like a terrible life before I was Muslim. Like I had like some like moral failings. Obviously, I was a teenager, but it's like. I felt like initially when I converted, I would like try and put my story in that box, but like only later I realized like, nah, it wasn't really like that. Like, but like because of that, I felt like I was like this evil, horrible person before I became Muslim. And the truth is, like in many ways, I wasn't. I was just kind of a young kid, and like I said, it's coming to terms with like the humanity of both yourself and other people. It actually makes it much easier to sort of change yourself and be a better person.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Yeah, it's so interesting. A lot of people come to Islam. I did my master's in NYU looking at conversion to Islam by Latinas. And very few of them had these like transformations. It was just like, I was looking for a faith and I just thought this was interesting and blah, blah, and it's very, very mundane. It's very ordinary. There was like, out of the 20 women that there's one near-death experience. That was it. It was like, oh, okay. It's like, oh, my brother converted and then he was talking to me about it. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to convert. It's like, oh, okay. Like, but you're right. It is, people want that sort of like, wow, look at this guy, mass murderer. And then he converts, it's like, wait, what?
It's funny because like I feel like that's what people because like I'm sure you've been asked 1,000 times like how did you convert to Islam by like random born Muslims at the masjid or whatever. And it's like I feel like because people watch that stuff online, those really entertaining. They kind of expect that. And when I just tell them like, I read Malcolm X, it's kind of inspiring. I did research and then I read the Sirah, 3-year process, but. Like low-key, I can get it down to like an elevator pitch at this point. Like, if I don't, I've told the story so many times, I kind of get bored of telling it again. So I've gotten it down to like a 20-second version. Like if it's something like if I don't like really care about telling the story like it's super in depth. Like, it's like,
but it's also kind of like it's hard to explain because we explain it when it's already done as opposed to in the process, right? Yeah. So it's like you look at it differently. From that perspective, like 2020, like you're like looking at it in a different way than when you're actually going through the process. Where you're like, I'm learning, and you have that kind of like, people talking to you like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it's like, okay, sure, but like this is like it doesn't involve you, right? In many ways. So it's a very personal experience.
Yeah, it is. And I think people like look for inspiration through those stories.
For sure. Hopefully, Inshallah.
Yeah, I mean, that's hopefully the benefit of it, or just to get to know people and whatnot. But like, like I said, there's no like crazy event that happened in my life where like, I saw 7 fat kind, 7 like some crazy dream or whatever. Like,
exactly. Well, I did have a dream. Actually, so did Muslim Cowboy had a dream as well. So I thought that was really interesting.
It can happen.
But of course it can happen, and who knows how you'll be guided, but it's pretty interesting. That's awesome. Okay, so I think we're at 1:12, 1 hour 12 minutes. This is awesome. I guess the last thing I wanted to ask you, so, and even Sartorial Shooter, which is but he was saying he's like most people change or convert when they're having like going through a divorce or the death of a family member. There are those stories as well. Like I had cancer, so it's like those are sort of things that change your perspective, right?
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm at the height of my life. Like I'm wealthy. I have a great business. I have happy children, all these things.
Yeah.
And then, Islam just sort of elevates all of that sort of thing. So like, you don't necessarily have to have like this doom and gloom story to like, So I really appreciate that. Yeah, most people don't have that where it's like I'm at the top of my game, and then it's like that's sort of also very rare as opposed to like I just picked up a book and it was assigned reading in 8th grade.
So, it's like also I think that it helps like regular ordinary people kind of relate to the faith more, because if you just think like I'm not like because then if you only stories you hear are like the gangbanger who like shot 3 people and raped 4 more and then he saw the light, like that's not most people are not like that.
No.
And so it's just like and so like it's just like okay, like anyone could become. I mean, that's the main thing that like I think is helpful for like white people just being Muslim invisible. Is just like anyone can become Muslim. You
Yeah,
know, it's like
totally.
it's not just like reserved for like people in jail or like, you
Right.
know, people from other cultures or whatever. It's like you could be Muslim, like me,
Yeah.
David Williamson,
Right.
17-year-old high school kid, can be Muslim.
Yeah. Yeah. Did any of your teachers have any sort of like, did they know that what was going on? Like your high school teachers, anything from them?
Yeah,
Were
I mean, like
they
they knew I was Muslim, obviously, but like
okay?
they're chill
Not that they
about
would
it.
say anything, but that
Yeah,
was more like, yeah,
yeah.
because they would have seen you before you're Muslim and then after, and yeah, that's sort of
Yeah, no,
interesting.
one of them actually wrote in my college recommendation letter. He wrote that he was like,
Oh,
he
cool.
sort of saw that like how Islam improved my life and whatnot. Um,
Oh, that's
no, I
cool.
mean like
That's
no
nice.
one, yeah,
I wasn't expecting Islamophobia, but more like we
yeah,
noticed a difference in you,
yeah.
David. Like
No,
that's
of course. I
really
mean, they're not
cool.
gonna be like Islam, but my dad actually said that to me the other day. He's like, I've seen
Mm,
the. He's like, it's been clearly a net positive for you overall in your life. It's
that's cool.
dramatically improved your life. And that's the other thing. Like people like to talk about, like, oh, what do my parents think? If you're just a normal person and you do your best you can and your life improves, like people are gonna notice that. Like people aren't
Yeah,
blind. Like
totally.
they'll, and
Yeah.
so that's the thing. It's like, would I want to take that away from my son, like or daughter? Like, would I want to take
Yeah.
that away from them? And
Yeah.
if you just live a normal life and do good things, America's a pretty accepting culture overall. I think people will.
Totally.
I think you'll eventually be able to win them over. It might be hard. It might take time. And like, at first it was a little bit hard for me, but at the same time, like, it happens. Like, just kind of stick
Yeah,
to it.
be patient. Yeah, sabr.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, sure. So, what do you think the biggest challenge for Muslims in the West is today? Because it's very different. Like, I feel like the UK is sort of this microcosm of what's going on in many places, and like we see the Dawah boys are like really, or bros are really, they're online. They're really kind of antagonistic to sort of the broader culture, which I really don't like, and I have to mute them on, on Twitter because it's like, what are you guys doing? But I feel like we have like Imam Tom, and we have really good scholars in the United States that aren't like that. They're not antagonistic
Yeah.
towards the broader culture. So like Muslims in the West today, what are the challenges? And also we have the First Amendment, which is like a huge benefit, which they don't have that in the UK or Canada. They don't even have that in Canada.
Interesting.
So what do you think? And also the thing is in the UK, oftentimes Muslims will stay Muslims for generations, but if you are a Muslim in the, Imam Tom talks about this, and you have children that are Muslim, they are more likely to leave the religion because there's there's only like, there's Detroit and Texas, and like there's pockets of Muslim community, but it's few and far between, whereas in the UK, it's much more condensed. So I'm curious to think about like, what you think about what our biggest challenges as American Muslims that we face.
Yeah. Oh man, it's a big question.
It's a
I'd say
big
the
question. I should have asked
biggest.
at the beginning.
Yeah. Biggest challenges. There's a lot. I think the main one for me is how are Muslims going to manage assimilation? Because
Interesting.
the vast majority of Muslims, at least that I interacted with, and a lot of them in the U.S., came post 1965,
Yeah.
and a lot of them 1980s and 90s. So a lot of the Muslims are like descended. Their parents were immigrants, right?
Right.
So the question is going to be, how do those people like manage to keep their faith and also become American? Because one of the big differences between Muslims in the UK and in the US is Muslims in the UK tend to live in their own sub-communities within the society.
Exactly.
And there's also much less affinity. One of my friends visited the UK, one of my really good friends, and he met with some thought leaders in the UK, and they were like surprised that people in America who are Muslim even identify with America, which is bizarre
Wow.
because like that's
Interesting.
like, why wouldn't I? Like, it's just like, why wouldn't
Yeah, I'm
like I live
American.
here, I'm born and raised. Like, it's just, and so
Hmm.
that's just a different type of thing. Like, there's not really as much assimilation in those places.
Okay.
Muslims kind of live in their own little bubbles, and like,
Enclave.
yeah, and it's like, so in America, it's not really like that. Like, you have some Muslim bubbles, you mentioned Dearborn and
Right.
whatnot, but like, those are still, that fits in with like a lot of trends within American society. You wouldn't have said that like the Irish people in 1920s in like Hell's
New York.
Kitchen, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, they're not really a part of, no. Like they're part of America. Like that's an American sort of community within the society. They're still Americans. They still have that Irish thing. But like America is just an assimilationist culture. So people,
Yeah.
they lose. And so the challenge is, can Muslims in America assimilate without completely losing their religion? And that, I think that's going to be something that is going to require conscious effort. And I think it's going to require good parenting more than anything. I think parents are going to have to teach their children that being Muslim is the religion. It's not about like your connection to Pakistan or your connection to whatever Arab country you came from or whatever.
Yeah.
It's okay. I think you should still keep some sort of cultural ties and not lose everything about who you are. One of the things I've sort of rediscovered, like some connections to European countries, like so my uncle actually has been like tracing our lineage and stuff like that. It's actually really cool to sort of learn about like who am I, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't think you should lose all that. But at the same time, like you should understand that like you're going to become more American over time, over generations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that people keep the religion and emphasize keeping the religion in conjunction with that. I've noticed a lot of maybe just the product of the environment I'm in, but a lot of Muslims, their parents sort of see like the whole like immigrant, like make my kids successful first and foremost above the preserving the religion element. And I think if you have those priorities, your kid will pick up on that, and they might lose the religion, but if they're super successful, you might not care. And so I know some, like there's obviously cases where like some immigrant families will be like, you know, don't like, they'll tell their daughter like, don't wear the hijab because it might impact your treatment, how people treat you and stuff like that. But like, no, like that's part of the religion. Like you shouldn't give that up. So that's like a micro example, but like, and then specifically the challenge for like Islam itself. So that's like Muslims. I'd say Islam itself in the West is Islam being seen as a natural progression for people in the West, or like a part of the West in some sense. And I think that really will only happen if you get like quite a large number of people that are seen as like I don't like use the term natives in America because it's not really accurate, but like I guess like white Americans converting to Islam because they are still the majority demographic. Because then I feel like Islam will be seen as more like a part of America, as opposed to right now, Islam is kind of seen as a race, right?
Totally.
Muslims,
like
America, like Muslims are kind of these like the brown people type of thing, like that's their religion, and like that is actually in people's minds who don't even hate Muslims. Like I said, that's what I thought. Like I wasn't like, oh yeah, these damn Muslims, like send them back. No, I was just like normal kid in high school, but I was like, my whole brain was just like, oh, Islam is like that, you know? Whereas like if you show people and you're just like normal and you're not like, and you're just like, you know, American, Western, like then people will see, oh, okay, Islam can be for other people. And it's like, that's going to take a really long time. Like probably won't even happen within my lifetime. But I think it's important to set the seeds so that way Islam can, and I think doing something like that will really help Islam to stay established within America. Because a good example of this is Catholicism. In the early 1900s, my family's Catholic, going back, Catholicism was seen as this foreign religion. The Italians, the Irish, those people, they're not Americans. Like they can't, like we're white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Like Protestantism is the American Christianity. The majority of Americans are still Protestant. But if you're Catholic in America, it's not like somebody who's like say they come from like Poland or like a Catholic country. They're not going to feel like, oh, Catholicism has no place in America. Walk down like DC or like any major city in America, you'll find tons of cathedrals, tons of churches.
New York.
It's like these people, these Catholics, they're not like, they don't hate America and they're not like antagonistic. They're part of the society. And that happened because there were a lot of Catholics that came here and they sort of integrated into the local population, and people sort of saw Catholicism as like, oh, okay, this is just another American religion. Like it's okay. And America doesn't really have like a state religion in the same way that plays. I think this is why like the immigration, the history of Europe and America is so different. This is, I think, really informs like why the immigration outcomes are so much different between those societies.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that's kind of that's the main thing. Like, just to I guess reiterate, culturally assimilating while keeping the religion, and Islam being seen as a sort of accepted part of like mainstream American society.
Right. Yeah, J.D. Vance lately has been saying this is the Christian world. This is the Christian world. And he keeps reiterating that. I'm like, bro, stop with that. Like the Muslim world is everywhere. It's not just over there. It's also in America, bro. Yeah. So I think the language we use is also really important.
And that honestly, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if like there were a lot of Muslims in America in say 100 years that people would be saying this is the Abrahamic world or something like that,
Oh, interesting.
because
Yeah.
it would be really bizarre actually for like a Protestant Christian like 150 years ago to be like, yeah, you know, like we're all Christian. Like they most like Christianity, like they were like Protestantism, like people hated Catholics. Like Catholics were not liked at all. Like and Jews as well. Like you notice a lot of American politicians will say the Judeo-Christian values, the Judeo-Christian. No one would have said that 150 years ago because the Jews were not seen as like an accepted part of American society. But now that they are, they change their language to be more inclusive of them. And you do see like some Christian like I work with Zaytuna a lot, so I do a lot of their articles. And so they a lot of them, I've noticed they like I've narrated stuff that's like written by like pastors or whatever, and they'll speak about like the Abrahamic God, because these people are not like, they don't hate Muslims and they're trying to be more inclusive to a Muslim audience, and they only feel they have to do that because the people, their audience is, there's a lot of Muslims in their audience. And so that's like a micro example, but like on a macro scale, a politician in the future, if like there's, you know, say a 10% like actual organic Muslim population within the country that they feel is like actually a part of the society, they're not going to want to alienate them. And so they might use different language when they're, because ultimately politicians are just trying to get elected. They're just appealing to the masses to get votes. And so they're going to say what's going to appeal to the most amount of people.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so assimilation is the biggest one without losing your religion.
Yeah.
And then over time, I think, like you just said, I think it's a big thing. Yeah, it's interesting because my father was originally Catholic in Canada, and then he converted to Protestantism because he wanted to be more accepted within the larger. He was a French speaker as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the conversion, and then the dropping the language, and then he became an English speaker, and then a Protestant. And it's like, oh, now I'm accepted in the other parts of Canada as opposed to just this one little community. So it's, and that was, you know, not that long ago, right? So. So it's, you can see how that just within my own lifetime, how Catholicism has been more accepted and nobody cares anymore, right? It's like, oh, you're Catholic. Okay, cool, right? Yeah. So even in, that's really fascinating. That's a very good point,
Vance is
David.
actually a Catholic himself.
That's right. Well, and so didn't his wife convert to Catholicism? Like she did, wasn't she a
sure.
Hindu originally or something? Okay.
I think she still might be Hindu. I'm not really sure. I think
really? Okay.
I think they had like a Hindu wedding because I don't know, like people post stuff. I don't know. I don't really care that much about his.
Yeah, I don't care either. But
I think
I just see his rhetoric. It's like,
I saw some funny. I saw something. I saw like a wedding. I think someone posted like a wedding photo or something, and he was like wearing. It's like kind of funny. He's wearing shalwar kameez, and like there was like a Hindu priest at the wedding or something. So I don't know like how they managed that or whatever. But like,
so if he was in Bali, he'd be the guy in the just kidding. The barefoot. I've seen those people walking through Varanasi, like it's completely disgusting and muddy, and they're just like walking the hippies. You're like, dude,
it's so
disgusting.
And the funniest part is, I was with a tour guide, and he goes, he's like, he was laughing himself too because he's watching it. He's like, it's not even a real thing in our religion. Like we just do that for the tourists. So these people think that like they think that they're like,
it's so
cultivating some connection with like this.
I know, it's bizarre. They don't do that in America. Like it's
scam to get tourists to like pay for the weird water ritual. It's so
very
funny.
Bizarre. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes, and in India as well. Yeah, it's like the wooden beads and the dreads and the thing. You're like, what are you? Who are you, bro? Who are you really?
It's very odd.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting mix there. Yeah, it's beautiful to see it in other places, but when people start LARPing as other things, it's like it's just odd to me. And as a convert, people are like, oh, just wear this. I'm like, we need Western modest chic clothing. Like I want to look nice. I want to wear like, that's the problem. So I like that you put up all your pictures on Twitter in a 3-piece suit and stuff, and you're able to do that because that's Western wear. That's it's really, really cool. So is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to talk about?
I was curious, do any of the audience members have questions or anything they want to talk about?
Let's see.
I don't know if you guys do that on your show.
Yeah, it goes by so quickly, the chat. Blissful Muslima, yes, parents feel like they've lost you, especially feeling lost in the upbringing part. So what you said about your parents, like when you start, doing these things, you sort of lose your son and daughter in a weird way. Like, I want you to still be David. I just want you to be a better version of David, as opposed to like this, why are you wearing a shalwar kameez? Like, what are you doing? Why are you wearing a thobe, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah. Come again. Somebody said, come again. Skills versus degree. We'll be waiting to see you again. That's good. Yeah. So there's not really that many. I mean, it goes on and on. There's like a lot of things here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I
So
just wasn't sure if like if you had like a Q&A portion.
no, I mean, if you guys have any questions, there's a little bit of a lag between the actual chat and then our conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the UK, there are a group of white Muslims who make me feel so low, and that's the horrible risk of unrecognizable bias and ignorance. Yeah, and then they're speaking Arabic in the chat now. Hamza Sortsis has a nice Dawa approach. Yeah, didn't you do something for Sapiens?
Yeah, I've recorded 2 books for them. I recorded their book
cool.
Islam and Nihilism. I have a lot of respect for Hamza.
Yeah,
he's been
for
nothing
sure.
but kind to me. Like I
That's
met
so
him.
cool.
I had a meeting with him. And he was super respectful, super nice. Like very. I have nothing but good to say about Hamza.
Yeah,
Really,
I've heard
really
nothing but
solid
good
dude.
things.
Really,
Yeah,
really
for
solid
sure.
guy.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, he's a really good example of like a preacher. Really intelligent. And he just knows how to like sort of not be like super aggressive with people when it's not necessary. And I think I really respect that.
I admire that. Yeah, I think that needs to go away. That part of the Dawa scene. It's like you're not going to win anybody over by being overly aggressive and being like. And I also feel like it's not really masculine, that kind of behavior. It's sort of like, it's like you said, it's kind of arrogant, and it's like that's not real masculinity.
It's chauvinistic, performative. It's performative.
It
I
is
mean, like,
performative.
look, it's entertaining. Like, I wouldn't be lying if I wouldn't say that like some of those speaker corner videos are kind of funny. But like
Yeah.
in terms of like I mean, if you're like someone who's preaching Islam, you can be really entertaining, but like that's not shouldn't be your intention. You know, like so it's whatever. But like I mean, I just don't think like here's the thing. Like, I'm a psych major. Like I talk about this. Like, if you want to learn how like human nature actually is, go read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Righteous Mind. And pretty much once you read that book, you'll realize that there's a reason why debates don't win people over. It's because most of our rationality is not as like separate from emotions as we like to think it is. Most of our thinking, most of our rational thinking is us just is it like a lawyer for our emotions. It's just trying to rationalize judgment. And a really good example of this that might be related to certain people is if anybody has ever in the audience has ever had a crush on somebody with really bad qualities, you'll often rationalize their faults. It's because that's such a powerful emotion, and your rationality is just working double fold to rationalize like why you're in love with this person. It's not even if you're making poor decisions. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah, totally.
with Dawa, people who is someone's like a really hardcore Christian, they're gonna have a deep emotional connection to their faith, and you arguing with them with like, oh, but I really refuted him on like this verse in the Bible or whatever. Like he doesn't care. Like it's just
he doesn't.
it's just like he's emotionally attached to that. So that's just how I think. You honestly, this is a reason why like people who are very emotionally like, oh, he just makes emotional arguments. Or those people tend to be actually way more effective in winning people to their side. And it's not because people are dumb. It's just kind of humans are thinking is irrational. Yeah, it's very irrational.
Yeah,
like,
that's why the stock market is the way it is. Yeah, people are irrational. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very people, and it's just like we don't really want to accept that.
Yeah, exactly. So my mom, who's a moderator on the channel, she's like, we have to bring David back for a Q&A, only a Q&A for you, because people are like super excited. Great conversation. So how are you learning Arabic is one of the questions. Courses, apps, tutor.
Courses.
You said courses.
Yeah, so I take courses at my university in Arabic.
University. That's awesome.
And then Insha'Allāh next fall, I'm a student, so I have this opportunity. I'm studying abroad in Jordan. I'm taking an Arabic only language pledge, so like I'll literally have to speak in Arabic the entire time, and all my classes will be in Arabic. It's like it like kind of hurts like whatchamacallit, like it makes it harder for me to graduate in terms of my degree and like my workload and other stuff, but I think it'll be well worth it.
Absolutely.
Because learning a language, like forget like even just the religious utility of learning Arabic, but just learning any language in general is one of the best things you can get out of your education. My father learned Russian at Georgetown and literally gave him like, it allowed him to do all the stuff he was able to do in Eastern Europe just because he knew the language.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you mentioned
it really
earlier,
does open your world.
yeah, it opens up your world. Yeah. And so
Wittgenstein said that. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Skills versus degree. How do you manage all these things, bro? Don't you also have university? It's what I asked you before. It's like, do you sleep? Is your sleep okay?
I mean,
brother?
like,
are you sleeping okay?
yeah, decently. Actually, decently. It's not all everything. I mean, like, I'm not like the best time manager, if I'm being honest. Like, it's just and stuff just takes a long time. And like, like I'm a student, but like over the summer, like this is what I do. Like, a lot of people around me got internships and stuff like that, and they work on their side hustles. Like, this is my main thing. I kind of just went all in with it, and I'm hoping it works out for me. And so, but it's a risk, and so I guess with school and whatnot, like, yeah, I wouldn't be lying if I said that, like, sometimes it has suffered a little bit, and like I've had to make up for stuff and whatnot, but I don't know, like, there's limited time, and I kind of just play my trade-offs, and I choose the things that I think will have the best long-term impact on me. Yeah. That's kind of what it is.
Awesome. Alhamdulillah. Well, inshallah, we'll be praying for you, and I'll put you on the prayer list because we have a whole thing going on here. So where we pray for each other because it's super important. And yeah, absolutely. So Jazakallah khair for being here. That's awesome. We have like an hour and a half, over an hour and a half talking. So inshallah, you'll come back because you're obviously, people want to talk. And there's like tons of questions here, brother. Like, I just can't get to them all.
Fair enough. Yeah, but we can do a Q&A.
That'd be awesome.
Hit me up.
Okay.
I can make myself available if you need me to. Inshallah.
Awesome.
I know
Probably
you're like,
after Ramadan.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Maybe we could do like another stream once the audio Quran is released.
Yes, I would love that. That would be awesome. I'm so stoked for this project. Yeah. When I heard about this, I was like, wait, what? This is so cool. So
yeah, no, I'm hoping to. I got to figure some stuff out with distribution and actually finishing the product itself. So inshallah, once all that's done and it's up, then we can do like another stream.
That would be awesome.
I'm happy to discuss it and answer audience questions about that or anything. If you want to ask me about where I get my suits from or
where do you get your suits from?
Actually, mostly thrifted.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Oh, so you're a thrift shop guy, huh?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, cool.
You just got a thrift store, a good tailor.
That's the thing. Yeah, for sure. Very, very important. It is not easy to find modest clothing for women. So inshallah, I'll have a guest on very soon about that. We're going to talk about modest clothing for women, especially Western clothing. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. You're lucky, brother. Alhamdulillah. You can just put a suit on and you look good. We don't get that option. I can't dress like a man. Yeah. Nor do I want to.
The pantsuit.
The pantsuit. That's right. Although they're all vests now. Like, everybody's wearing vests. So it's like women vests. It's like, I can't wear that either. So Jazakallah khair, brother. I'll see you in the next live stream, inshallah. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ali. And this has been a pleasure. I hope I didn't ramble too much because
No, you didn't. It was awesome. Everybody's like, all the best. Love to see you. And it'll have the replay if you want to, you're bored and you want to listen to it again tonight. Perfect. You can watch through the. Feel free to comment. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Appreciate you guys. Inshallah, we'll do another show soon. And
that'd be awesome.
And follow me. IG and Twitter is real.99. The other one's just like audio ilm, like audio ILM.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to show them on your website very shortly here.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. Pleasure.
All right. Wow. My goodness. We could talk for hours. Alhamdulillah. That was so cool, guys. Okay. So I want to share this with you because it's really, really awesome. This is the audioilm.com. And inshallah, I'll put it in the show notes tomorrow for today's video, obviously. Let me see if I can do this properly. This, and then share screen. Inshallah. This is so cool, guys. Isn't he awesome? I love our community. Our ummah is so beautiful. Professional Islamic audiobooks. You read the book, we record the audiobook. Yes, David Williamson here. A 15-minute meeting, book a free call. Yeah, this is the audio Quran coming soon. So you guys have to check this out. It's super, super cool. A fully dramatized audiobook of the Quran in English performed by over 50 Hollywood actors and professional voice actors, complete with Dolby sound design, sound effects, cinematic nasheed music, a revolutionary audio experience. I'm so stoked for this. And these are also really cool. Concept of Islam simplified. I looked at that today. The Baraka effect. You guys should check this out. Very, very cool. So yeah, and he's got yes, all this feedback here too. So inshallah, you guys will check it out, and inshallah, we can have him back on the channel when it gets released, because it's super, super, super interesting. I am absolutely stoked. And I think it's going to be really cool for kids as well, right? So you can show, let your kids listen to this. I think it's really beneficial for everybody, inshallah, because, why wouldn't you want to let your kids learn? And then like you said, it's an immersive experience, right? So you want to have your kids feel what it was like when Musa, peace and blessings be upon him, talked to Faroon, right? Like these are things where you don't get to see it, and it's not visual, right? So there's not this constant stimulation where you're hurting your child's dopamine, right? Because that's the thing with like TikTok and all these things where you're like the scene changes every 2 seconds. So the dopamine, you just get addicted to dopamine, and you don't want your children to be addicted to dopamine, right? You want to reduce screen time as much as possible. So you have that on the background, you're cooking, you're talking, oh, did you hear that? Oh, that's so, So these are things I think that have a longevity. You buy it once and you can listen to it forever and ever, and then you can gift it as well. So inshallah, our brother David comes back on. Amazing. Alhamdulillah for us. Our little ummah here is just growing so quickly. So please, while I have you guys, prayers for David and success in his university school. He's taken on a lot for a young guy. He converted at 17, mashallah. We had the pre-interview and I was just like, 17? Like I was still like, for the first few minutes, I was like, I'm kind of blown away. Like that's, alhamdulillah, you never know. So please pray for our moderators. Of course, my mother, alhamdulillah for her. She also has family members. Her 2 sister-in-laws and her brother-in-law are very sick. So please pray for them. Please pray that my mother gets guided and my brother gets guided, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides who he wills. If I had my way, she would already be a convert. So please pray for my mother. Please pray for Mary, our beautiful sister who is sharing all this Arabic knowledge here. She's wonderful. Dear sister to me. Khalil al-Rahman, he had a brain hemorrhage. His son Atif was here in the chat talking about his dad. So please pray for him and that the family gets sabr, right? So when your dad's going through it, everybody goes through it, right? Neela Hussein, she's also dealing with cancer. Arch Phantom, he's not here tonight. Maybe he popped in the chat and I didn't see him, but he's working his tail off, so please pray for him. He's also a really, really dear brother. Mehdi, he was feeling unwell. Kyle Stewart, Gulrez Ahmed's mother, Gulshan, please pray for her. Munib Kazi, Mohammed, my Arabic teacher, Mohammed, he is in Egypt. His dad, we were praying for his dad this whole week. I've mentioned his dad unfortunately has passed away. So if we can pray for Muhammad, my Arabic teacher's dad, that he is granted Jannah Firdaus and please pray for sabr for his family, It's kind of scary because you just, a lot of people are dying during Ramadan. I feel like we're getting all these stories on Twitter, like my cousin just died in a car accident or so-and-so died. And now, indeed we belong to Allah and indeed to him we will return. That is a guarantee. So please pray for my Arabic teacher, Muhammad's father and his whole family, right? So he has 3 young children, now they're going to grow up without a grandfather. So Mohammed Umar Bilal Siddiqui, please pray for him. And then also Andrew Tate, that he gets surrounded by brothers, right? So that's what David just said today. You have to surround yourself with good people who actually care about you, right? We want to surround ourselves with people who love us for the sake of Allah, who want the best for us, and who are going to guide us in a way that's kind and merciful. David mentioned many times in this interview, it's like, we are human, right? We mess up, right? If you guys see people slipping, don't judge them. We're going to slip up too. We never know. There's a whole thing where you make fun of somebody and it turns out that same thing that you're making fun of them, it happens to you. And you're like, oh gosh, that's embarrassing. I'm that person now. And now people are going to make fun of me. Be merciful, right? Our actions speak louder than words, guys. So please, if you haven't seen a brother or a sister at the masjid, hug them, welcome them in. Don't say, where have you been? Just be nice, be kind, because you never know, you might fall off the deen too. And you want somebody guiding you back gently, patiently. So, alhamdulillah, guys, we didn't get to talk about Juz 17. but maybe tomorrow, but probably just 18 tomorrow, inshallah. Please drive safely tonight. St. Patrick's Day, guys. People are going to be drinking and driving. It's a guarantee. Please, please, please be on guard tonight. Inshallah, I will see you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Central European Time Zone, 1:30 Eastern Standard Time Zone. I love you guys all so, so, so much. Jazakallah for being here. I appreciate it. And please pray for our brother David. And I will see you tomorrow, inshallah. Bye, guys.